Steam rose gently from the paper cup in her trembling hands as she walked into the crowded briefing room. To most of the officers gathered around the long oak table, she was invisible. Just another young woman sent to deliver coffee to the men who carried the real weight of the mission. But when the pilot glanced up from his folder, his gaze froze. His eyes weren't on her face. They were locked on the small, faded patch stitched carefully onto her sleeve. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. The patch wasn't regulation. It wasn't supposed to be there at all. A deep navy circle marked with a symbol only a handful of men in the room would ever recognize. It wasn't just fabric. It was history and blood and sacrifice. The pilot's jaw clenched, his voice catching for a second as though he'd just seen a ghost. She felt it too. The sudden silence that washed over the room, the ripple of unease in the air, her mind raced. Should she hide it? Pretend it was nothing? But how could she, when that patch was the only piece of her brother she had left? The brother who had never come home. She had sewn it on quietly, telling herself it was just for comfort, just a way to keep him near. Never once had she imagined someone would notice, let alone hear, surrounded by sharp eyes and sharper judgments. And yet the pilot, a man hardened by years in the sky, looked at her as if she had just unraveled a secret meant to stay buried. He cleared his throat, and the men in the room straightened. Where did you get that? His voice was calm, but beneath it was something else. Urgency, maybe even fear. Her hands shook as she set the tray down. It belonged to my brother. He wore it on his last deployment. The room stilled. Papers no longer rustled. Pins stopped moving. A low murmur swept through the officer's curiosity, sharpening into something deeper. The pilot's expression shifted, softening, but also hardening at once. A man pulled between memory and duty because he knew that patch. Everyone who had ever flown in his squadron knew it. It wasn't just a symbol. It was a call sign, a mark carried by a select few who had undertaken missions no one else dared whisper about. Her brother hadn't just served. He had saved lives. And then the hardest truth hit him. He had been there. On that last mission. He had seen the flames, heard the static on the comms. He had believed her brother was gone. Forever. Yet here she was carrying the proof of his sacrifice like a quiet flame. His throat tightened. He thought he'd never face this moment. He thought he'd never have to tell anyone what really happened that night. But she was staring at him, her eyes searching for something. Answers, closure, maybe even forgiveness. That he inhaled slowly, steadying himself. Your brother, his words faltered, but the weight behind them silenced the room once more. He didn't just fight. He shielded us all. I'm alive because of him. Her knees weakened, the coffee cup nearly slipping from her grasp. For years she had lived with only silence, with vague official reports that said missing in action. Now, in a single sentence, the truth came alive. Her brother hadn't just vanished into the smoke. He had chosen to stand, chosen to protect. Tears burned her eyes as the officers one by one rose to their feet in quiet honor. No applause, no loud words, just the solemn sound of respect filling the air like a tide. And for the first time since her brother's final mission, she felt the heavy weight inside her chest. Ease. His memory wasn't lost. It was living in the pilot, in the men around her, in the very patch she had sewn to her sleeve. Because courage doesn't die. It echoes. It lives in the hearts it once protected, and it finds its way back when we least expect it. She had entered the room as a girl carrying
coffee.
She left it as the sister of a
Hero.
her silence replaced by pride.
S.
Oh, remember this. Kindness doesn't vanish. It waits and it finds its way back. The patch on her sleeve was never just fabric. It was a story and stories. When finally spoken can change the weight of a room. If this story moved you, share your thoughts below and subscribe for more powerful true stories of courage, sacrifice, and justice. Your voice keeps these memories